So I'm hoping by now you understand the source of fear and you have transformed some of your negative beliefs and assumptions about yourself into something a little bit more affirmative. Now let's move on to this lecture, and I'll tell you why fear is actually very daft. In this lecture, I'll teach you about your brain and how to understand where fear is driven from and how to control it. So I need to do a little bit of a science lesson. I would like to take you through this diagram to help you understand the source of your fear. So follow with me on this picture of your brain, but of a science lesson. There's a part of your brain that's known as the thalamus. And this is the part of the brain that is in charge of your senses. So what you see, what you smell, what you taste, what you hear, what you feel, all of these signals gets routed to this part of the brain that's known as your thalamus. From this part of the brain, the signals gets rerouted to another part of the brain that's called your neocortex. And this, if you will, is your thinking part of the brain. It's the part of the brain that receives these signals and it says to the part of the brain what to do with it. So you see chocolate cake, just saying, and you decide whether or not to eat this cake. This is your neocortex part of the brain giving you that feedback. But according to a scientist whose name is Ledoux, he found that in his studies on emotional intelligence, that there's another part of the brain that's called the amygdala or amygdala. And this is the part of the brain that is in charge of your emotions. And there's a small synaptic connection between the thalamus and the amygdala. So before the neocortex can receive some of these signals, the amygdala has already received it. And what this creates is what is known as a hijack effect. So your amygdala can, what is called, have a hijack effect where it's overly reacting on the stimulus of your thalamus. So you see the chocolate cake and you get so excited, or you might get so angry that someone only served you chocolate cake and they didn't give you an option of, say, vanilla cake, that part of the brain overstimulates itself and it doesn't allow the neocortex to do the thinking. This is when a person says, calm down, relax, it'll be okay. They're trying to contain the amygdala part of the brain so that the sensory signals can go to the neocortex for you to think more rationally. So why am I telling you all this? Because as a speaker, you could have prepared your speech and done everything exactly as you have learned it so far on this course. But a day before your presentation, those nerves start coming through. Maybe you receive that email to say that a very senior manager is going to be in the audience. Or on the day of the talk, there are much more people in the audience than you initially thought they would be. And this creates in your head an emotional hijack where you're getting too emotional and you're not thinking clearly. And you end up being a selfish speaker than a selfless speaker. It's that amygdala that's making you selfish. So now that you understand this, you now need to work on how to control this. And you control this through the questions or the statements that you say to yourself. So in using my stage, I'm now going to go to the pain side. You could be that speaker on the day of your presentation. You see this big audience and you're not prepared for it, but it's a good thing that you have a good audience, but you're getting a bit of an emotional hijack. In your pain mode, in your selfish mode, you could be saying things like, oh my God, I'm not ready for this. Or why is there so many senior managers in this room? What if my presentation goes wrong? What if I forget? Very selfish thinking. So to convert this, I'd like you to come up with questions or statements that are more positive, that allow you to take control of the situation. And it sounds something like, calm down, you'll be okay, you're prepared. Mentally, you have attracted this audience, it's an opportunity for you to grow. So by saying things like this, either a positive statement or a question, it allows you to get control of your emotional hijack so that you can now rationally think through the situation. Some positive questions that you could ask in the situation is, so this senior manager is here, how can I use this opportunity to share this message with this person? Or, I see that this audience is much bigger than I thought. How will this help me grow as a speaker? And so before you start your speech by asking these questions, you center yourself through rational, positive questions that help you keep that emotional hijack under control. Now let's go back to sharing with you why fear is daft. And again, as you can see, it's a little bit of an acronym. Fear is daft because fear grips you, and it can have 4 different ways in which it reacts in you. The first, which is the D, stands for dread. When you are fearful, you're dreading this talk. And it's this long drawn delay between the time that you know that you are talking and the time that you have to deliver. And knowing that there's this bit of a drag, it actually makes it more onerous for you to talk. So on the day of your talk, you'd rather be the first person to speak than to wait your turn. The second level of fear is known as anxiety. I sort of covered it earlier in my earlier lecture in this section. And anxiety is that feeling that makes you very anxious about what's to happen, and it causes you to think of all these weird scenarios as to what can go wrong. So you can't sleep at night, you're tossing and turning, you're thinking about all these nightmares, and again you end up being selfish. The third level of responding to fear is freezing. And this is really the worst. You are walked onto the stage and you're fine, but the moment you stand there, you freeze. You can't say anything. And I promise you, no one can help you. You have to get yourself out of that situation. And so that is the third level. The fourth level is to transform your fear into selfless behavior. And how do you do that? By training, by preparing, by being open to learn, and also by speaking from your heart in a very natural and sincere way. You're giving all that energy and all that information to your audience. Now, at this stage, I want you to pause this video, and I've created a link for you to watch another video of another speaker. As you watch it, I want you to watch him as a speaker. Number 1, he has some valuable messages to share. And number 2, I want you to see his energy, knowing that he is going to die in a few months' time, how he's delivering his speech. It's roughly around 10 minutes long, and I promise you it's 10 minutes well worth it. Go ahead now, watch that video, and I'll chat to you afterwards. Did you watch the video? Maybe it made you cry at the end, and it is what it is. It is a bit of an emotional story that he talks about. And like I said, he was dying of terminal cancer, and yes, he did pass on shortly after delivering that particular video. Now, my intention is not to make you cry. My intention was to highlight something that relates to overcoming your fear of speaking. And this is this message. What is different between you, me, and a Randy Posh? The one difference is that he knew his time. We all are dying. The difference is that he just knew his time. And if you watch the video, you saw how much of energy he gave. I mean, the amount of passion that he had for his talk. You wouldn't actually say that he was dying of terminal cancer just because of the way he delivered his talk. And that's what I mean by transforming your fear into selflessness. I loved how he spoke about, are you a Tigger or are you an Eeyore? Eeyores are, I have to do a presentation, I'm not ready. Tiggers are, yeah, let's go, let's give it a go. I don't care if it's scary, but let's go. And that's what I'd like you to be. Be Tiggers in life, where you take every opportunity, including presentations, as a way of helping you grow. 2, he spoke about choosing to have fun today, tomorrow, and every day until he dies. And that's what life is about, Speaking is fun. And you need to see it as being fun. And only when you change your mindset like that and see it as a challenge of helping you grow, will it be fun. I love how he said that we have a finite amount of time. And in that time, we need to either play the game hard or you complain. So what are you going to do? Are you going to be complaining about your next presentation or complaining that someone chose you to speak? Or are you going to play the game hard and make a decision to be an inspiring speaker and to share your message? I'm hoping it's the latter. So the next time you speak, I'd like you to be reminded of a Randy Posh and know that it is an opportunity to speak. That particular speech is an example of how to be a selfless speaker. With this lesson in mind, let's now move on to the next lecture, where I teach you about confidence and how to build on your confidence as a speaker.